Well, it's turning out to be a beautiful Friday afternoon. Everybody went fishing. Matter of fact, I talked to Chris earlier, Coach Chris Taylor. He was out there fishing out in Myakka. Actually, it's really cool. I got to go out to the Myakka River area. I talked to TNT Bait and Tackle this morning. Tim over there, he owns TNT Bait and Tackle. His family's been in Charlotte County for many generations, actually from back in the 40s and 50s. And they've been in the live bait business. They've been in the seafood fishing business just for a long time. The man's just really a storehouse of information. Knows everybody that's ever been here, where they are, who they were, everything. Really cool. In fact, one of the few people I've talked to locally that remember old Holmes Bait and Tackle that used to be at the old Schoolhouse Square in Port Charlotte here. So it was nice to talk to somebody that knows the area, knows everybody that's been here and lived here, and really cool. So we're going to probably be talking to TNT Bait and Tackle out there. They're right at the foot of the Elgin Beam Bridge. He sells live bait, tackle in there, really has some great fishing advice. He can tell you what's going on the pier. He gives us a little bit of advice, lets us know what's going on. I guess he says they're catching some really nice cobia out there, really nice snook, all on nice shrimp out there. He's got really beautiful bait too, nice size shrimp for sale, shiners if you're looking for them. Whatever you're looking for, probably has it in his bait tanks. So really cool place. We're going to talk to him. Actually, we're going to listen to him a little bit. He has some really good information about the local area, so I'm going to enjoy this. I think I'm going to stop out there with a microphone and just sit down and have a beer and talk to him about Charlotte County. So that should be cool. And also has some questions, and I saw on Facebook a few people have been talking about the tide charts in the area. How come they don't really match? It seems that if you look at the newspaper or magazine or a tide chart that you get at the sports section of a sporting goods store, they all seem to report a different time for a different tide for a different place in the area, and how do they draw those conclusions. So we're going to talk about that a little bit, and really the comparison between pardon me, online tide charts that are dynamic and tide charts that are printed out ahead of time that are based more on more static information. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. I was hoping to have a piece from Chris about some new lures he's been trying. There's a fellow out in DeSoto County in Arcadia named Don Daniels, and I think I had that right. And we're going to look into that more. Chris bought a couple of lures from him, went out here, and I guess he couldn't keep them on the line. They just ripped them off the line so fast, and he went out to actually go get some more. And from what I know about it, he knows a guy that does some kind of engraving that hooks him up with this guy that makes these homemade lures, and it all equals big fish. So anyway, we're going to grab Chris and ask him about that and see what's going on with Don Daniels and those lures out there. And really cool. Also got some new people that are coming on, some pro staffers. Really glad to have them. So they're going to have their own show, their own channel, doing their own thing. This one's in Pasco County, Florida. So really cool. Cool stuff coming up, and we'll go over all that stuff, introduce you to Tim out in TNT Bait and Tackle, and get back to some more pretty cool stuff here. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you in a minute. Well, I appreciate everybody listening in. I wanted to talk a little bit about tide charts. I've had a couple of emails, and people ask me basically, why do 2 or 3 different tide charts give me two or three different tides? And I want to go out to the Peace River and fish off the bridge. It says it's low tide, and I get out there and it's actually an incoming tide, or vice versa. And why is this happening? What's going on? And before I really answer, before I got back to anybody, I want to do a little research myself to make sure I'm getting it right. So I did a little research. I contacted some people that publish tide charts. I contacted, of course, the University of South Carolina that publishes one of the ones online that a lot of people use, tbone.biol.sc.edge or edu /tide. And you could check it out. It's on a lot of websites. You can find it every place. You could zoom in on your own area and get a tide chart. Now, what I found is basically there are 2 different tide charts out there. There are some that are pre-printed. You'll find them at some bait tackle shops. You'll find them at Walmart, I think, has them in their back section in the sporting goods. Newspapers print them. Magazines generally print them. And what they are, they're lunar-based. They're moon-based charts. Wherever the moon is, whatever phase it's in, what season we're in, and its location or proximity to that body of water dictates when the high and low tide is. Now, that's generally pretty straightforward. One thing I wanted to mention, and this is where the online tide charts, such as this one at the University of South Carolina, come in, and some like it, they account for a little bit more than all that. When you get to the printed tide charts, it's very hard for the people that are advertising with these printed tide charts to determine what the weather is going to be like next week. So if you get a tide chart and it's got, for this week and the end of next week, or if it's, whatever days long, generally the printed ones aren't going to include very much variation for the weather. So I'll give you an example. Here on the Peace River in the past couple of days, we've had some bad weather. If you look at some of the printed tide charts from around April 8th, 9th, and 10th, actually the 7th, 8th, and 9th, you'll see that it was showing sometimes a flat tide, it was showing a low tide sometimes during the day, and when we had that heavy wind blowing straight up the Peace River, it was super high tide. Now if you look at the tide charts that were printed, it'll show it as being actually a low tide and it dropping off almost a half a foot between the high and the low that afternoon. But if you were on the Peace River, I don't think I've seen the water that high since last summer. So there was no low tide, there was no drop in the tide, so all the printed tide charts were inaccurate. They were off because the wind made the difference. Now if you go online and you look at some of these dynamic tide charts that are based on an algorithm written by a computer scientist that understands how the weather interacts with the water, they're a little bit more accurate. So I went to the University of South Carolina's website that does a really cool algorithm that figures some weather conditions, some tidal conditions, some borealis effect conditions, and part of me figures it into their tidal estimates or their projections. And they were fairly accurate. So when I looked at their tide chart over that period of time, they showed a flat tide almost, and actually no low tide on that day, that the wind was blowing strong and it didn't go out. Whereas a printed chart showed there being a low tide that day. So what I found, and again, research this yourself, contact the people that actually make the tide chart that you're looking at if you're not sure, and find out what it's based on. So I found that the online tide charts, the one that we have it at our website, if you go to FishyFins.com and you go to quick links and arrow down, you could choose a tide chart that's in your area and check it out. And these ones are based a little bit more dynamically on day-to-day happenings. If it's storming, if it's different, it's weather conditions, borealis effect, I'm sure that pretty soon sunspots and that kind of thing that do definitely affect our tides are going to be figured in too. So generally you're going to get a more up-to-date, better information from the online tide chart, something that has an algorithm built into it to compensate for wind, weather, stuff like that. And so that's why you see a difference. Now also, you got to remember there's a variation in the tide chart based on where you are in the center location that area is based on. An example is Shell Point, Peace River, Charlotte Harbor, Florida are all given one tide chart. Well, if I'm up at Shell Point or I'm on the Peace River, I go to the south end of Charlotte Harbor, I'm going to find 3 different tidal conditions. So there's deviations from the tide that are generally told to you on the chart. So it'll say that there's a high tide at the Peace River Bridge at noon. However, Shell Creek, high tide will be at 12:20. And they'll show you a 20-minute deviation, something like that, so that you could estimate where you are and kind of base a tide on that. Now again, we're talking about a couple of minutes difference, we're talking about a few inches of water, and we're talking about something that the wind is going to greatly affect. So if there's a strong wind blowing up the river and it's supposed to be a low tide, there's a good chance that the water's going to stay up in the river and we're going to have a pretty high tide that day and it's not going to drop out so much. So, that's what I found out. I wanted to share that with everybody. Again, you really need to do this research yourself, find out who's printing out the charts that you're looking at, the tide charts, and what that's based on. And also find out where that deviation begins. So if you're looking at the tide chart that's really for Cape Hayes and you're fishing off the Peace River Bridge, how many minutes do I have to account for that distance? Generally, I think around here it's about actually 35 to 40 minutes, just that short distance. That's about, 10 miles or so? So, there is a deviation. There are a couple of different types of tide charts. Usually the printed ones are based on the moon's position, the seasons. The online ones have an algorithm built into them. Generally, they do account somewhat for the weather conditions, the wind, stuff like that, storms, even a hurricane. If you look at a tide chart, there's a tropical storm off the coastline. The ones online are going to show a super high tide. You get the one that you picked up at the store that was printed out, it's going to show you the same normal tide that there would be if there was no storm out there. So, that's the difference between the ones online and the ones that you pick up generally that have been printed out in magazines and newspapers at different bait shops, tackle places, sporting goods stores. They do the best they can. I mean, it's not like they don't want to give good information, but when you're printing out a tide chart, it's hard to even get the weatherman to give you a good estimate of the weather Thursday when you're printing something out on Monday. So that's basically what happens. Oh, I just want to share that with you. Really enjoyed this research. I learned a lot myself, so we're going to post this on our website. Again, we have the tide charts on our website. Go to FishyFins.com. You could choose from one of the ones we have there, or once you're in there, you could actually pick a different area and choose that. Well, that's about enough about the moon. Let's see. We're going to go ahead and talk to Tim out in TNT Bait and Tackle. And I want to apologize. I kind of caught Tim by surprise. I called him up on the phone and really wanted a little more time. He was on one of his remote phones, so it was kind of hard to hear both of us at the same time. So I tried to keep my mouth shut and let the man do some talking. Really liked him. He's one of the locals, like I said, that have been around for a while, so it was good to hear him talk about the old days and all the people that have grown up in Charlotte County that I've known. So anyway, let's go out to Tim. And next time we're going to plan it out a little better, so we'll have a nice clear conversation. You'll be able to hear it a lot better. I'll probably head out there and talk to him, and really a great guy, and I sure appreciate it, Tim. So let's watch him, and Tim, thanks again, and we'll talk to you back out there probably in about a week or so after this interview. I was out there last week of your store, a really nice place outside. The place was packed. It was a Saturday morning. And
right, yeah, I'm third generation of live bait in my family, and this is it, so... we're building. This will be my second time back in retail. I got out in '94, and I went back here 4 years ago. And both times it was right here in El Jabin that I was in the retail end of it. So, yep, we don't mind helping and doing what we can do for you.
That's fantastic. It's, as a matter of fact, when I was in there, you were selling bait so fast, I think the bait trucks are backed up trying to keep your tanks full. So that was great.
Yeah, right. Well, I got my own bait shrimp boat. Used to work for my father and my grandfather back in the 50s through the 70s. They had the largest live shrimp company on the west coast of Florida back then. So, yeah, I got a lot of experience in the bait. I try to keep myself in bait. Live shrimps are the main thing, as you know, pinfish. And fiddler crabs. Now I'm fixing to roll into the tarpon crab season. So there's a lot of fish in this area. There always has been. Right now we're doing a lot of bucobia off of live shrimp, believe it or not. Snook in the evenings off of live shrimp and cut bait, things like that. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, what days are you going to call for the fishing report?
Well, I think if we can give you a call sometime before the weekend, kind of get everybody ready to go. Say if I were to call you on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday morning, would that be okay for you?
Yep, that'd be fine. It'll be either Chris in here or myself. If it's not, it's my daughter or my niece. We're kind of a family run. Try to keep it like that also, you know.
Fantastic. We like you. I mean, I've lived here since '71 myself. I was born or raised out in Pirate Harbor in Punta Gorda out there. And
right.
So, we've been here, that was a fishing community back then. And so
yes.
We always try to support the local community, and especially the
right.
tackle guys, the guys out here chartering. I mean, it's a lot of work to make a living down here, and we really need to get people to know that people are here ready to do business and come on in.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then you got to remember my family's big orange bait trucks. At that point in the early 70s up until 78, 79, because Dad had heart issues, they serviced every marina from Sarasota all the way to Everglades City. It was Gulf Bait Company. And I just now, I'm in the wholesale and the retail.
Oh, yeah.
So I just now took that name back.
Well, I remember those trucks. As a matter of fact, there was a place up in Port Charlotte by the old schoolhouse. It used to actually be a schoolhouse over there called Holmes Bait and Tackle. And I remember seeing
Dad and Mr. Holmes got a lot of his own bait, but him and Dad were back and forth. When Dad couldn't get enough, Holmes would give them to him. And actually, since I've been opened up here, I've ran into Holmes' son, Oscar Holmes. So, me and you, I know your family knows my family. I'm a birdseed.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Now, you went to Punta Gorda, you know how it was. They split the county on us, and I went to Venice. And I'm 57 years old. I don't know how old you are. You got to be in that same.
I'm 45 now, so you got a couple of years on me, but not.
I was way ahead of you. I was running ahead of you. So, and I'm the youngest. I was going to say, if you're my age or older, you may have went to school with one of my brothers. But that's good. It's good to be able to really talk with somebody that's from around here.
Absolutely.
gets married and moves away. Before you know it, you don't even know who's in the same town you live in.
Right, very good. Okay, one more time, your first name is?
My name's Frank, and
Okay, Frank, I am Tim. I'm the owner of TNT.
Fantastic, Tim, and I sure do appreciate it, Tim. We'll give you a call. Matter of fact, I'll probably just stop out there on a Monday when it's real slow and just talk to you a little bit. I'll have a beer with you or something.
Yeah, that'll be fine, man. I keep a few here in the refrigerator, and we'll sit down and chat about old times, and I'll give you a little history, and maybe you can blow me up a little more.
You got that right. I definitely will be out there, Tim. I sure do
All right,
appreciate
Frank,
it.
thank you for your time, sir.
Hey, you betcha. You have a great day and have a great business.
You too, my brother. Bye-bye.
You got it, bye.
Well, Tim, we sure appreciate it. I know how busy you are out there, and Friday it's definitely busy getting all stocked up for the weekend. Saturday mornings it is tough to get in there, very, very busy. And honestly, looking at the bait they have in there, they have really quality bait, really good size shrimp, good size shiners. I take my boat up to the pier up there and get off the boat, walk across the street with my bucket and get bait there than to play around, so definitely worth it. And we sure appreciate it, Tim. Sorry for springing that on you. I didn't tell him that we were going to start today. I just figured let me give him a call and see if I can get him on the horn and just get a little meet and greet, hello, how you doing, and get to know him. He was on his two-way phone, so like I said, it was kind of hard to hear at some parts, but I think we got it clear enough so that you got the message. So thanks again, Tim. We're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to have Chris has got some great fish stories up at Mayaca over where Tim is by TNT Bait and Tackle. Again, he's right at the foot of the Mayaca River Bridge, the Ojibin Bridge. So you can pick up some bait and go right out on the pier and catch some cobia, he said. I guess they're catching snook on shrimp out there, cobia on shrimp. I actually have some friends, and Chris was even telling me that are catching cobia on topwater jerk baits. So there's a lot of shark and cobia up in there. The water's getting warmer, so those big attacking fish, the ones that we like to catch up there in the river, are coming up into the warmer water, into the canals, and good to see them. It's great to catch them. So we'll be definitely talking to Tim a lot more in the future. We got Chris coming up tomorrow, and we sure appreciate it. Everybody have a great Friday. Have a wonderful night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow just before you take off to go fishing, we hope. So have a wonderful day. Don't forget, get some pictures while you're out there fishing. After you take the picture, choose to share it. You could either text me at 941-204-9100, or you could send it, choose to share it, then choose to email it, and send it to thefish@FishyFins.com. And we'll make sure we get your picture posted. We'll probably add it to our Facebook page and put you on one of our aired episodes. So thanks a lot. We got some new people coming on. They're going to add some channels to the left here. We got some new pro staffers coming in from a few different lure companies around the state. Really great information, great video, great radio shows that they're going to be hosting. So really cool stuff. So thanks to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great afternoon out there fishing. Bye bye.